Hello, and welcome to another episode of my Centauri Let's Play. This is Northstar. I hope you folks are well. Back again after a little bit. Looks like one of my Recon Rovers has been cornered by mine worms. It's probably as good as dead, although if it manages to kill one of the mine worms that attacks it first from open terrain, it might be able to disengage on that tile. Of course, then I'll just get attacked. It'll be adjacent to the other two. So yeah, it's as good as dead. Let's disengage doesn't allow that one to attack again. I don't know. With side combat being in the fungus, it's probably incredibly bad odds. Right near a good city site this happened too. There wasn't fungus in this tile. It's next to two nutrient resources at sea. There's wrong rainy, or possibly sites for two different cities. One here or something. I'll have to expand like crazy, but these bloody Spartans have me spending so many of my resources on unit support just to make sure that if I do get in a war, I can face them and probably beat them, although I can't guarantee I can take their bases. With do or die is not on, so if I defeat them, they'll just restart somewhere else in the map. They might surrender and I could make them submissive, but they're in some kind of prime territory. I could probably get way more of the land than they could. Now, if I was playing the Thinker mod and the AI was better and could terraform better, I might consider keeping him around. Santiago is a submissive pat mate because they might actually get enough out of the territory they control, especially with commerce, to make it worth keeping him. But I'm probably better just conquering every last base and see him reappear, goodness knows, maybe on the polar ice caps or something. Or if they decide to respawn. Worth noting, since there doesn't appear to be anyone on this island, it's probably talking. I was just remembering about large landmass connected by narrow net. That's not a large landmass. That's a small island, really. But sorry, there's a modified version of the map of Charon. People have rushed, done transcends on this island there. There's probably, anyways, two factions on this landmass. I know there's a spawn site here near Mount Planet. That's what this tall bit is. Another here, so there's probably two, and then there's two here. I'm not sure where the last faction is. This little island is probably not. Maybe a faction got eliminated early and respawned some random place like up here or something. Who knows where the last. There is a site out here, but clearly there's no faction on the east of this continent, so no one landed in a colony pod there. What else? Give me a sec. Okay, turn the volume up slightly there. The mission year 2202. So this is technically turn 102, but with tech stagnation and not being able to focus too much on my economy thanks to Spartans, well, not nearly as far along as I would otherwise be. And yet, the game seems to think I'm number 2 now in the rankings. I've pulled ahead of the Gaians recently. Wonder why. They're still ahead of me in tech. Probably. I have more bases, and so population, I think that's the score. I was thinking about. Oh, I can see score. You always have these secret projects. Yeah, it's got to be population. They probably had early tech lead, but Guyan's probably didn't build a ton of bases, especially with their low growth rating. Although it's actually, on this difficulty, they're at neutral growth because they get +1 from difficulty and -1 faction effects. Yeah, the factions and AIs are not all equally powerful in different difficulty levels. That's for sure. Looks like the Believers and Morganites are hanging out near the bottom of the score rankings. And the University and Hive are neck and neck as well. And the Guardians have a significant lead of the University and Hive. I was thinking about turnover. I should take a quick look at bases while I'm doing all this. Starting with this one, actually. That's 4. It's 1, 3. They've got 13 to go, so it's gonna be 4, 4, 4. I could do this. Let's see, that would leave 8 to go. Wait, am I miscalculating? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You know, they have 13 to go. That'd be 9. Yeah, so 4, 3, 3, 3. If I wanted to run that. I'll run this for a turn. Probably better. So that for a turn, that for a turn, that for 2 turns, I guess, to get the most minerals without wasting nutrients or slowing down growth. I guess I'll do the minerals first, actually. Maybe I can get this Recon Rover out sooner if, war breaks out earlier or than expected or something. Weevil Council is far enough close enough to all this that there's a little exploration they can do. So one of the last places to do a Recon Rover, which I'll end up with 41 Recon Rovers and a Scout Rover tuning, so 44 rovers in all. Although 42 that I might actually use in combat. Scout Rover eventually upgrade to an impact, and I have the tech. Frogging right over the Recon Rover level. Probably, anyhow. Oh. I think it's 30 energy to upgrade a Recon Rover and 40 a Scout to impact. So 10 energy to turn a Scout Rover into a... hold on. I should test this. So one thing I was thinking of though was, I should mention, oh, that's 30? 30 energy credits. But it's supposed to be 10 per level of upgrade to weapons, 10 per mineral cost. Why is this 30? That's way more than I expect it to be. I think there was an extra cost for upgrading rovers, though. Now that I think of it. Shoot. Cannot
execute order. Insufficient energy.
Interesting stuff. Yeah, and they make upgrades even more expensive for stuff in the Thinker mod, at least as an optional, which is annoying. mods shouldn't be rebalancing game stuff, but it is optional, which is good. I mean, I think it's optional. It'd be annoying if it wasn't optional. Too often you get this process of certain strategies and playstyles become very popular, and then the people who play those playstyles get to hating anything that's not their way of playing the game and nerf alternatives and just force their perspectives. And because they're a critical mass, they're the largest group, they win out over others by sheer numbers, and stupid ideas predominate. This isn't democracy. People say, "Oh, democracy," because it is actually usually a kind of oligarchical. A handful of people get to positions of power within forums and communities, um, who are more likely to be drawn from this group. Because if people were actually, debating things democratically, there'd be more of respect to win over people for views that are less popular, to form coalitions, and then you would see these game rules be optional more often, to because it doesn't cost anything to dominant groups if they want to make most of the stuff optional. It's very much not a problem except for a little extra coding. Um, Collaborative efforts. But sorry, I'm getting into political theories. Um, for those who are new to my channel, by the way, I sometimes talk about some of this stuff. I'm disabled with long COVID. Being disabled is a thing that you realize is intensely political. You realize the way society mistreats, ignores, erases, and in the case of long COVID, is not even working on a cure for this disease. Makes you very much more focused on politics than you might have otherwise been. I've always been a pretty political person. And I've done other stuff, like I worked as an EMT for a time after I got a master's, before I went back to grad school, special master's and another degree as well, which was getting straight A's in. It was definitely going to end up becoming a physician, though later in life that would have liked. I was definitely getting into an MD program. No guarantees that something could have happened where I wouldn't have made it through, or got sick or disabled there. Things can happen. But if not for, you never know where life's going to take you. Maybe I would have got struck by lightning. But I definitely would have probably made it as far as getting into an MD program and probably graduating with very high grades. The biggest challenge for me probably would have been residency, but then I got disabled with long COVID in the last semester of my program, and when I was I'd already gotten straight A's in the special master's part, and which was only a year of classes, and that was the second year for the other program. And I just had to do research for the special master's part. But before that, I was an EMT, and one of the things about EMS, and I got this on my mind, is seeing a thing about truck driving and how it's being automated now, and with Aurora Technologies doing these self-driving big rigs, basically, down in Texas. And one of the pieces of reasoning they're using is the so-called shortage of truck drivers, but there's not actually a shortage. What there is there's very high turnover. There's actually more people, like something like twice or three times as many people the licenses to drive big rigs as there are jobs. It's what it is, though, is people go into this field and they get horribly mistreated ever since 1980, when Reagan started deregulating this industry, his Congress. Republicans started doing that. So working conditions and pay are a lot lower, and there used to be a lot of people left, and more. This is capitalism. They fucking mistreat workers. There's very high turnover. Then they cry that there's a shortage of people because there aren't enough people willing to go into this field and be treated like slaves, basically, to replace the people who just keep quitting. So there's not enough people, but it's only because they mistreat the workers. And with lower turnover, they'd easily have enough people. And the same thing is true in EMS. There's a air quote shortage of EMTs. And by the way, also nurses, teachers, and some other fields. But it's because of higher turnover than there should be, because people are treated poorly in these fields and they leave the EMS. Also, they get injured because the for-profit private EMS companies are not taking adequate care of safety of their EMTs. Like when I was an EMT, they would understaff the number of EMTs around. And then we could never get extra units that we need to lift heavier patients that can assist or in difficult places, which you're supposed to be able to get. But if there's no units available, they're allowed to get around, like the OSHA rules and stuff that are supposed to, have them help not have people lift loads that could injure them. And they also don't invest in stretcher. There's like these mechanically assisted, like I shouldn't say there's these partly robotic stretchers that take some of the load off. They don't invest in that. There's certain lifting aids they didn't invest, or they're supposed to have in the ambulances, but there's always not actually there. And the stock, not enough. There's a lot of shitty things they did that endangered us, and then not adequately training some of the new recruits and tolerating people who have bad lifting techniques who are endangering their coworkers. They don't care as long as they get the numbers. There's just so much shit they do. And so people get injured and people get burned out because the weight, and people leave because the wages suck or barely enough to live on. Not really enough to live on to even, pay rent and health insurance and car insurance if you have a car. It's insane how poorly they treat EMTs. And so there's very high turnover. And then they cry EMT shortage. And it's the same thing to some degree with nursing and teachers. Now, doctors, physicians, there's a shortage of, but it's for very different reasons. Although turnover is getting to be a little higher ever since the pandemic. And that's now starting to contribute. Burnout. And hospital chains is big. Hospital chains. There's some of them are for profit and some of them are supposedly non-profit but act like for profit with the freaking boards running things for their own benefit. So that is contributing to burnout and starting to have an additional turnover problem. But the really big problem is we don't train enough physicians in the United States because of in the mid 90s funding for medical residency training being frozen, which was done by Newt Gingrich, evil bastard. He did several other things, including in the same bill, in the same year, adding the exemption to payroll tax contributions that for university employment and church employment and several other types of employment that fucked me over personally. It's the reason I can't get SSDIs because of these exemptions he added when I would otherwise be eligible, because some of my jobs didn't pay payroll tax that otherwise would have. And with the time in grad school and some periods looking for work, I got fucked. And being disabled young, it's much easier. People who are older away at this or in the same number of work credits I did. I actually got disabled at the worst possible age where the work credits, they keep increasing to a certain point and they just plateau. So someone 10 years older than me would have had more time to get the same number of work credits. I got screwed by bad timing. Plus, the rate that work credit scale is unfair to young people. Plus, jobs that I worked not being considered eligible, even though I was paying other taxes, is bullshit. Yeah, I got fucked over by this, but I was also getting fucked over by the limits on residency training because when this happened, medical schools had a harder and harder time matching the graduates to residency training. They try and maintain very high match rates because it goes into rankings of medical schools, and they're all in the U.S., very prestige driven and want to be the number one. So medical schools slowed the increase of their class sizes. So sometimes they were still increasing, but they had less each year than they otherwise would have. And some med schools froze or even decreased their class sizes. So MD program class total graduates have grown relatively slowly. Now, there has been an enormous uptick in DO programs, which started very small and become more respectable and numerous over time to pick up some of that slack in primary care, but that shoehorns people more often into primary care, which is, of course, something that the insurance companies and stuff love because specialists are expensive. They can limit the number of specialists. They figure they'll have to put less money out to provide specialist care because health insurers don't have to compensate patients getting specialist care. There are no specialists to get the care from in the first place. So it's an intentional strategy by health insurers to guide medical schools towards only training primary care, plus prevention being cheaper than treatment, which is a more reasonable reason they do it. But it's about cost savings in the end. And because it's hard to get into med schools, and I was interested in being a surgeon, I had no interest in primary care, really. And unless maybe being a cardiologist, which can be done in a kind of primary care setting. But because I had very little interest in most types of primary care, that meant I couldn't do a DO program. I would definitely have to do an MD, and the pathways are entirely, they're not, you do different things to prepare for each, so it's not like you can really cross apply. You need a recommendation from someone who is a DO, for instance, um, as opposed to like MD, where you don't even need specific recommendation for an MD or something. You know, professors, clinical hours, but yeah, partly to make sure someone knows what DO is and is interested in that. But anyways, this whole shortage in residencies, which leads to a shortage in med school class seats compared to the number of applicants, because the number of applicants has grown hugely faster than the number of seats, screwed me over and made it harder for me to get to med school when I faced a lot of disadvantages due to growing up in kind of essentially a poverty situation, plus bullying, plus abusive father, shitty lack of support from family, all these things that put me a huge disadvantage compared to other applicants. The bottom freaking line is, and then having family that I had help financially and said, well, I need to be saving up money to apply to take the MCAT, to try and save for MCAT prep courses, which I was never able to afford, to apply to med schools earlier. There's just so many things that went into this. Yeah, I got fucked by this, and it was only after working as an EMT, applying to special master program, managing to get in, take out a ton of student loan debt, managing a 4.0, which I never expected I could have done in that, but I smarter than I thought I was. I mean, I always thought I was smart, but more academically capable. I figured I didn't do it. That wasn't ever going to be, you know, a straight A student, because authority and unjustified authority and dipshit professors don't know their stuff kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Of course, I didn't see many of those in my special master program. The professors actually knew their stuff, unlike some of the professors I ran to in undergrad and even grad school. And the program was designed in a way that rewarded hard work rather than rewarding just spitting out a professor what they wanted to hear and studying hard. And I mean, better designed program played into it. Also being more free of family control than I was as, say, an undergrad. But I was always a good student, but I never figured I could be a perfect student like that, like perfect grades. 4.0 was the highest you could get. They do A pluses, or I would have actually had some. So yeah, I got screwed by long COVID, but and cheated out of what would have been my finally second chance that I actually made good on to become a physician. You know, kind of after years of struggling and suffering, I was finally to get where I wanted to go, and then fucking disease. But excuse my language there. But now our political system doesn't give a shit about people like me. I'm not useful if I can't make money for the high bourgeois, that is the billionaire class. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. What was I doing with here? 4 times 8, 32. Could invest in laser squad. Yeah, I'll do that because I need a couple of these. But maybe. Yeah, there's always a chance force to grow there. Yeah, the system does not care to invest in a cure for this disease, and it doesn't care about ordinary people. Never a mistake. For a second, this is a vile and entirely selfish and amoral system we live under. Capitalism is not have human best interests are. And I mean, some people are going to be like, oh, you dirty commie or something. To those people, you need to learn more things about history, about philosophy, and about politics, because unless you have not even the slightest idea what anyone who says something like that, what socialism actually is, worker control of the means of production. That's the key thing. That does not mean the Soviet Union. That is specifically Marxist-Leninism. But any socialist, and not all socialists are Marxist, not all Marxists are Marxist-Leninists. So there's a lot of diversity. Just because one group is bigger through historical accident, most socialists are Marxist-Leninists, but that's a subset of a subset of socialists. There are idealistic socialists, which are not Marxists. Idealistic are also known as utopian socialists. Technically, there may be a few idealistic who aren't utopian, but almost all non-Marxists are utopian socialists. So there's utopian socialists as opposed to so-called scientific socialists, which are mostly Marxists. And then within Marxists, there's Marxist-Leninists, and there's non-Marxist-Leninists like me. I'm a democratic socialist, which Lenin's ideas lead to a one-party state that leads to a dysfunctional political side of socialism. The Soviet Union actually did pretty well economically when you look at the standards, but politically it was a fruit basket. And it was political instability that crushed it in the end. Mountain command here is, hold on to that condenser. Yeah, it's gonna be a bit. I don't necessarily need the scout patrol instantly. I do need pop. That's 33 turns. What if I did defense command on that? No one's even working on that farm, on upgrading that farm. Yeah. Northwood just goes in the probe team. 5 plus. This is 13. I guess it should. I can do this for a little bit. And then swap back to that. And maybe this will get overgrown with forest. And then it'll just be a superior tile. We'll drop the nutrients down. Alright. So yeah, a little optimization with tile assignments. Micro. I'm sorry to get a rant here, but I'd wanted to say something about turnover and mistreatment of people and treating people as disposable, and I guess I just got, because everything, all the connections to these things are not unrelated at all. How does, one thing relate to another pretty quickly? It is not to create an apple pie from scratch. First, you must invent the universe. That's Isaac Asimov, but it's a commentary on how everything is ultimately connected and everything's got a basis in something else. A little bit. It's also about fairly obscure physics. 14 turns. Yeah, because if I grow that laser squad, I'll just not have. It'll just soak in support. I can wait a little bit. Alright. So I'm emphasizing nutrients a little. It's going to take some time for my probe teams to scout out Spartan territory to steal techs. That maybe utilize those techs to upgrade my military, have some impact infantry for attacking bases where it might actually find Synthmetal or plasma steel garrisons that might actually require impact weaponry. Out in the open field, I can try and make sure I'm the one attacking, and I doubt I'll find anything with armor out in the open field. So if I'm attacking laser infantry, impact rovers, recon rovers, none of that requires impact weaponry. Lasers are going to attack with 2 attack to 1 defense and trade off quite well. I mean, it can reduce my losses a little, but the additional unit cost is not worth the reduced casualty rates for the most part. I mean, I suppose the units cost the same support, so if in the long run I was trying to maintain a really powerful military, but I'm just trying to beat the Spartans, or at least greatly weaken them so I can get to focusing on my economy. Alright. That farm is available right now. Now we get to keep one of these energy, so 1-2-1 basically versus 2-1. Faster nutrient accumulation. Faster population growth, basically.
Request confirmation.
Let's see. For 9, if this was for 7, I think it would be what? I can't remember when I have 7 minerals to go. What it was it cost to rush? 16, I think.
Request confirmation.
Here it costs 22. So yeah, these are like 2 minerals. They each cost 3 energy. I won't rush it right now. I think with 6, what is it? It's not 12, 13? Or, I don't remember. 14, 15 energy. My memory with long COVID is not amazing. Alrighty then. Well, I've reviewed the unit assignments. I think these are good. If I made some mistakes, I made some mistakes. I suppose I beat myself up over it, but if I stress out, gameplay will be too darn slow. All right, 31 minutes here. Sorry it took so long. And dead. I mean, that was entirely expected, and you can see plus 50% fungus strength. Yeah, the wildlife has a combat bonus. Attack units and fungus.
Complete.
Laser skim ship. Now Defense Command works on a probe team because probe teams don't cost mineral support.
Production complete.
I didn't have this working in insert tile because nutrient stockpile's empty, so it would take a long time for the investment in minerals to, of nutrients to pay off in Mountain Command. So I'm doing it at Defense Command, which has more full. Yeah, Defense Command, which is closer to growth. So quicker return on investment that way. Defense Command has 2 minerals. Surplus bonus. Well, it'd be 3 when it goes back to working, so that produces minerals instead of this condenser, and it grows, it'd be 5. So yeah, it's got way more mineral production in the long run. That's why I'm doing probe teams, not slow probe teams there. Plus, I want to get the very first ones done sooner. The highest priority maybe actually to map. Well, no. It's to steal a couple techs and get the units upgrading, and then to map out Spartan territory. And all that before I even think about doing things that weaken them but risk war. Because the first time you probe base, you're very unlikely or will not get caught.
Mineral resources.
Ah. I got a tech from it as well as mineral resources.
Resources exist to be consumed, and consumed they will be. If not by this generation, then by some future. By what right does this forgotten future seek to deny us our birthright? None, I say. Let us take what is ours, chew and eat our fill. CEO Nwabude K. Morgan, The Ethics of Greed.
Well, if anything, that's a rather unethical statement, although you see some dipshit liberals, honestly. Neoliberals. Liberalism is actually a right-wing ideology. Trying to defend this, the philosophical types, I don't know, I don't have... There's two well-known analysis of this game, Pan to Alpha Centauri, and I forget what the name of the other one was, but it's on like WordPress, which is, by the way, a terrible site with the ads. It's some really scummy ads you have to be careful about there. They'll try and redirect you, but that guy in particular is like, well, it's right wing, and no, Law is a humanitarian. He's not a liberal. He's a humanitarian. His primary emphasis is on minimizing human suffering. He may have liberal tendencies, but he can run a planned economy perfectly well. And fundamentalism instead of democracy, if need be, is not. And planned plus democratic, that's essentially democratic socialism. That is not democracy plus free market, which would be neoliberalism. Now, Morgan is very assiduously a liberal. And of course, if that statement makes no sense to you, that's because you don't know what these terms mean. Liberalism is an ideology of small government, minimal welfare programs, except the government really ever isn't small. The government exists to protect the interests of capital and the very rich and nothing else under neoliberalism. Industrial base. The first colonies lack any kind of factories or heavy industry, so the creation of an industrial base becomes a high priority for economic growth. This industrial base emphasizes small-scale manufacturing with primitive assembly lines and simple currency instruments. Okay. That was, I mean, technically quite valuable. It means they'll steal some other tech from the Spartans, I guess, because they probably had that to steal. It's a fairly low-tier tech. Mineral resources here will definitely pay for themselves in the long run once they stick a colony in this uninhabited island. On an alien planet, you have land that's actually uninhabited rather than being stolen from natives. But I gotta do a little unit design. Armored skim ships? Oh! They don't cost anything extra to armor up with Synthmetal. Calls it a laser foil rather than a laser skim ship, but yeah, I might as well build these in the future. There's no extra cost. Well, I'll need to prototype a Synthmetal unit first. I was going to put it... What was I going to prototype Synthmetal on? I could do it on transport. Sure. They don't see as much combat. Could change Maritime Command to prototype a armored ship here, or Oceans too. They're actually further along. Synthmetal garrisons. armored transports. Okay, yeah, that adds mineral row. Cost exchange could be as much as 40 to upgrade. Maybe the upgrade costs have already been rebalanced by science patch or something. It doesn't make sense that it would be so much otherwise. Scout defensive costs 20. Yeah, if I wanted something to protect some of my rovers when they attack, I could build some of these. As opposed to infantry, they have the advantage of being able to disengage when they're, well, to keep up with the rovers and to disengage when they're on their own on a tile. Scout defensive, not a bad unit. Lots of stuff here that's potentially worthwhile. Cost 20 to armor a former up. Ugh. Okay, that's not a good deal at all. Probe team. Costs 10 to armor them. Just make some resistance to artillery. Better against mine worms, but yeah. And put him in armored rover. Oof. Alright. Synthmetal coastals. Yeah. Laser foil is actually cost effective. Scout defensive has some light use. Wonder how much it costs to up armor these. It's still at least in building them, it's 10 extra minerals for the equivalent of tacking on a defensive unit that would cost 20 in terms of comp power, so it's cost effective. Since the unarmed version has non-combat penalties, essentially 1.5 defense for 10 instead of 2 for 20. Armored transports will be useful someday. The synthmetal garrisons will obviously be useful at some point to defend bases, and and rename this armored transport or APC for armored personnel carrier, because that's what it is. It's an armored personnel carrier. That's the acronym, stands for Armored Personnel Carrier. Scout Skirmisher? Didn't it have some sort of generic name before? Weird. Why would the name change? Scout. Skirmisher still. Well, that's what it is, so yeah. I call like a scout defensive before. Might produce some Scout Skirmishers. Synthmetal Garrison's not actually useful unless I'm defending a base. If I'm defending a base against Spartanians, I'm doing something wrong. So I'd rather fight them out in the field, to say the least. And skirmish them all the way back to the base if necessary. Something on the... I don't think the enemies use artillery much. This is mainly just a probe team that can fight mine worms a little better. Pays for itself in 20 turns versus a scout patrol defending a base. And actually quick on that because when running fundamental is because my probe teams start with higher morale and scout patrols. So yeah, it's not a bad investment, and importantly, it protects those bases against probe teams as well. So at some point, like Miriam, might set up a base somewhere and offload probe teams onto my continent, and I'll be ready for that. Or we still have a design that can also be used for that, or send them overseas as this continent gets settled, and maybe near Miriam. The point being is it's good. It's a useful unit. Always, it's often not worth putting combat units in bases to protect against mine worms because the support costs, and you just don't get attacked that often. So, but this is a probe defense team. It's for defending a base both against mine worms and enemy probe teams. It doesn't have the lower cost of slow probe teams, but the fact that it also protects against mine worms, it's probably worth the extra cost. We'll see. You know, I'm gonna... No, because the other one might be called probe defense. I have a better idea. Frontier probe team. There we go. Because I put them at bases along the frontier, because they can still have tech stolen. Right. Scout Skirmisher for skirmishing, an armored personnel carrier. It's only 10 extra to prototype armor on his ship, so that's probably where I should do it. Could do these. It's not a useful unit most of the time. Some point, I'll probably do it, replace the laser skim ship Scout Skirmishers, but only after, you know, I've actually freed up the slot number 3. It'll be next to Recon Rover, with my very basic units that kind of have a role throughout the entire game. Since you can do trance Synthmetal garrisons, and they cost 20. I mean, that's probably actually the version they'll have there. Trance Synthmetal garrisons. Scout Rovers are also going to go obsolete. Be replaced soon. In fact, I thought I already marked these obsolete. Don't need them clogging up my queues. Laser foil. How much would this cost to prototype? Oh, not bad. I do want my navy. take 8 turns. This would be 6 though. Could start an armored personnel carrier. Add oceans too. Just out of curiosity. Arming seaformers cost 10. Okay. Helps a little against mine worms because you use non-combat debuffs, but yeah. Yeah. It's probably worth prototyping a C unit also because C units have terrible morale. They're training at green. There's very few things I can do to improve that. Right. Give me a moment. Actually, I only took a sec. Yeah, I actually want to transport foil. And the reason for this... By the way, how much would it cost to armor these? 10? Huh? Why does it not have a prototyping cost? That's weird. Should list a prototype cost. Wait, basic transport is 30. Oh yeah, they're 20. Cost 10 to produce. So at some point I might produce armored versions because they fight better against my worms. Some point, but reason I'm doing transport foil. Very much because there's a risk of the transport getting sunk, and I could have units stranded overseas if that happens, which I might want to rotate them back to take over mindworm duties, mindworm patrol duties, while more of my combat units move to the front if Spartan, aggressions break out there. Or, I might find artifacts overseas. It's better to just have not put all my eggs in one single basket, so to speak. Recon Rover, queued up after. Now, actually, this base will have terrible probe team because it's going to have 1 mineral, maybe 2. It's pretty distant, remote too, though. No, it's going to have to be a solid 1. Maybe I'll be able to transport stuff a little by sea to save a little bit of movement on the probe team's game to the front, if need be. It's a little risky. Of course, as I move some of this fungus near Ocean Institute, more minerals. Yeah. Is what it is. Anyways, I got the zones I want. I should check.
Insufficient energy.
If something has been prototyped, it costs a lot more. But I have 5 of these, that's right, 5. How many transports are complete? 5. I think the cost is 5 times. Yeah, it might actually be pretty expensive to up armor those even once it's prototyped. I'll have to check then. Alright. Transport foils are worryingly vulnerable. That's for sure. To Isles of the Deep and such. Try and keep my distance from this fungus at least. Might want to protect this with the skim ship. Keep an eye out for Isles of the Deep and some more unexpected, but nope. It's not a good defender, but the laser skim ship provides some defensive utility. It's a little more likely to survive than the transport foil. Cheaper to replace. Right. This might be dumb though. If this is attacked, the transport foil probably also gets sunk. Just causing collateral damage that I don't need. Yeah, that's dumb. It's well and truly dumb. Alright. I'm not gonna do that. I'm better off putting the laser skim ship somewhere where anything that's likely to hit this, well, I'm assuming I'll come from here, but it's maybe a little more likely on the coast. If it's near the coast, it could provide artillery bombardment. Long-range fire on mine worms, so I actually want is this to be near here. Yeah, I'm gonna probably slowly bring this foil back to UN Oceans too and keep it in port. It's not worth risking. Till I know where there's a location of a pod that I can gather. There could be some on this coast. Interesting, I could terraform up. It'd be just 8 turns. Take always slightly longer than moving the fungus in this tile. To terraform up and then head south. Of course, it would destroy a kelp farm here, but meh. help is less valuable than land tiles. Yeah, let's frickin' do it. Terraform. Or wait. Oh, I probably need a condenser. Don't I? To grow the pop. Eventually? Doesn't provide any benefit. To grow the population here. Except running doctors, maybe. Okay, Golden Age. Preparing for the future. If I terraform up first, the condenser can improve rainfall in land tiles and new revealed. And also create a rain shadow here, but these are all arid anyhow. Well, that's moist. Might dry it out a little. Oh well. Can't win them all. 4 credits to raise, and yep. You guys will get to see me raise some land out of the sea, as well as make this tile higher elevation, so solar panels will produce more there. I don't know if this one will get over 1,000, but this will, for sure. Shoot, I probably should have actually put that transport foil. I can fix it. Didn't cost me any. Sorry, redo this one more time. Because what I want is to be able to get here. To pick up scout patrols here. Forgot about that. There we go. Always forget something. If I can get 3 scout patrols in this landmass, I can quite quickly find any pods, and if one dies to mine worm, kill off the injured mine worm. It's got its uses. So there's a cargo capacity of 2. Put that Scout Patrol in Oceans do for now. This can defend Maritime Command for the present moment, I suppose. For like a turn. A single turn, probably. So I might want to get out here and send more Scout Patrols either here or down here, maybe? around some of these little islands is landmass. So other places to explore is the point. Alright. Another skim ship. Off we go into the ocean blue. See what we find. See what we do. Alright. This point's 11 nutrients to grow. Was doing that before. Should do this for a turn. Make it 8. This is 5. This for a couple turns. Yeah. Gets down to 5. It's previously 2 instead of. Should I screw something up? It's 13. It would have been 3 turns to fill the queue. Whoops. Shouldn't have worked that. Shouldn't have worked it. Oh, 1 turn delayed growth for getting a rover out sooner. It's not a terrible idea. Especially with all the 3 mine worms coming out of that area. 1 could make its way here. Alright. Stakes made? Maybe. I'm not doing great today. Some days I'm tired and I do great. Some days I went for a short walk, I think yesterday. I went to park, oval ground, just a couple laps, and I don't know, I'm still getting like a post-exertion, very mild post-exertion malaise, mainly affecting my thinking ability, not so much my body, thankfully. Sucks, but happens, I guess. And use this transport to get the formers here sooner. Boom, boom. Yeah, I did do a little messing with the scenario test. Perimeter fences definitely are the first thing that mine worms consume on a base. I did like a blank map with just a tiny custom-made island, all water. They probably should have tested a rocky tiles give defense against mine worms, but since infantry do get a base defense bonus, I wasn't able to test mine worms destroying a base's last defender because every freaking time for whatever reason, maybe it was because it was an early game year, the mine worms very rarely would kill the defender, even when there were a ton of demon boils around the space. It was annoying. And the scout patrol would rank up too much. It's probably a mechanism to make it harder for factions to get wiped from mine worms. Anyhow. Boom. Scout patrol guards, I suppose. Mildly useful if some mine worm comes here, adjacent to the stack or something, but not super useful. Let's also go here if a mine worm destroys this. Explore on the coast here. I'll try and get the Scout Patrol close to that pod. In case my worms spawn. Have an opportunity to at least attack one of them immediately. This area is now very dangerous because of the mine worms, but should be able to. Ooh, a pod. Well, no chance of getting a support unit here in time. I kind of want to risk the Uni Rover. If it's energy credits, I don't need immediately. If it's tech costs actually go up the more techs you have, so there's no immediate benefit for a lot of techs. Like this is tech cost is a little lower before. Getting industrial base wasn't free. Also increases eco damage, making this 2 now. I'll go up to 3 eventually with more techs. Risk of eco damage goes up the more industrial base at least makes sense that would affect the environment. Okay, and the xenofungus extends all the way to coast there. No way around it. Yeah, well, I may come back later. Let these mineworms dissipate. Some of them maybe go out into the open where I can attack them. Worried about being stuck in this fungus. Or, well, not being stuck, but moving into it and a bunch of mineworms spawning and losing the Uni Rover. And most things they can get become more valuable the longer I wait, I think. Unless I was to get a free base facility or another Uni Rover. Even the Uni Rover has kind of a fixed benefit. Mostly, though, I get this Recon Rover, and I have 2 Rovers there. I'll probably try it. And risk the Recon Rover over the Uni if possible. Interesting note on the economics of rapid expansion. I mean, I've been building probably more Scout Patrols than I should. They have a tiny bit of utility against turning Spartan aggression, and sometimes they see combat level up, and if someone got really experienced, I might upgrade them to impact infantry. It's not entirely terrible, but if you're just expanding, trying to do as quick as possible, I think I figured out you probably often on a frontier base you'd want to do a former Scout Patrol for 2 free support units, and have the Scout Patrol actually guard the former, because if a mine worm comes for the Scout Patrol and is defeated, then you have saved both the former and the base. But if it comes for the base and manages to defeat the Scout Patrol, it's not really drastically different. I mean, I guess it depends on positioning, but then you leave the former unguarded, and another mine could come eat the former and then attack the base. I could be wrong about this. I think it depends really on which is more vulnerable, former or the base, based on where the fungus is. But one thing's for sure, perimeter defenses are quite cost effective actually. If your bases grow rapidly, because it's 5 rows of nutrients to replace a pop if the base is not down to size 4 for instance. So if you have, say, a size 5 base, you build a perimeter defense. Just saving 1 pop will already paid for the perimeter defense, and versus building a scout patrol isn't guaranteed to win, so you'd probably need a couple scout patrols to fan base. It varies in difficulty though. If you need scout patrol for police, you should have it, but versus having a second unit in a base, and then having to pay support costs on it, and the perimeter defense definitely pays for itself if the unit would have lost. To get a perimeter defense is a guaranteed protection against a mine worm that gets through the garrison, whereas you probably need 2 scout patrols to provide similar level of protection on average, which that will only take 15 years for 2 scout patrols to cost 50 minerals, so it's not actually a long time to pay for itself. That's the point. Or maybe you could have 2 bases defended by 3 patrols, but still like 23 years versus 2 perimeter defenses. So the point is, perimeter defense is definitely not useless. And I was figuring out some of the math, looking at it, it's especially because you can put energy credits into them, whereas you can't really rush scout patrols because they're all in a row. So that's the big thing, that you can put energy in. So if you're not needing energy for upgrading units, you're not in a military arms race. They got their uses. Anyhow, getting this mine done. Nobody is working that mine tile yet. Next turn I might swap to that. Don't want to emphasize nutrients too much. Monitoring agency. Alright. This kind of sucks to cut right here. I know there hasn't been a lot of amazing interest here, but I'm kind of a little bit too much difficulty focusing for this game at the moment. That's on top of probably spending too long talking about things that you guys don't care about. So, I don't know. Maybe you do. Maybe you don't. And the formers do a thing. They're out there. All right. That's good. I'll save here. Need to lie down for a sec. Let some of this caffeine kick in. Then maybe I'll do a video of something else. So wish you all the best. Take care of each other. Be kind to yourselves.
The drones need you.
And may you always find a guiding star to lead you home. Adieu.